Hello, this is Angelia with today's wisdom. Today's wisdom comes from Daily Ohm. An empty vessel can be filled. The power of not knowing. There is wisdom in not knowing. And it is a wise person who can say, I don't know. And, I say that quite a bit. I don't know. For no one knows everything. There are many types of wisdom, from intellectual to emotional to physical intelligence. And if you feel like you have to know everything, you might want to take a step back and examine why that is. Are you insecure? Do you feel like you have to prove yourself? Because, nobody knows everything. And I'm smart enough to know I don't know everything. It's a lot of stuff I don't know. But again, there are people who are really smart. There are people who are emotionally astute. I know people I have a friend who's just so emotionally astute, I get a little embarrassed because she thinks of saying nice things that just don't cross my mind to people, and it's not that I feel like I'm not nice, that doesn't occur to me. Evidently, she's got a very high EQ, and then physical intelligence. One of my sons, he could chart angles on a soccer field, and, I can, see angles pretty good. And another one of my sons, like I said, he can measure to 1/1000th of an inch with just his eyeballs. So, there are physical, geniuses. Yet, even deemed experts in their fields do not know all there is to know about mathematics, yoga, literature, psychology, or art. And that's true. Because new things are being found all the time. You're never going to know everything there is to know about anything. It is a true master who professes ignorance, for they only are an empty vessel that can be filled. So when you admit you don't know everything, then there's room for more to come in. There are many things in life that we don't know, and there are many things we may have no interest in finding out. And I know that's true. There's a lot of things I'm just not interested in, And I knew a person who kind of didn't like that about me. They felt like I should give everything a chance, And I'm like, but I know enough to know that's just not for me, and I don't want to be involved in that. And some people don't like that, and that's kind of their hang up, not mine. There is freedom in saying, I don't know. When we admit that we don't know something, we can then open ourselves up to the opportunity to learn. And that's something we do around here a lot. What is that? Or how does that? I don't know. Let's Google it. And so we sit there. I mean, Google is like the funnest thing that's happened in our family. And so we'll Google it and see what is that? How does that work? Like my husband and I the other day, we were coming home and these little sweat bees, and I was like, he said, no, that's an August fly. And I said, no, that's what we call a sweat bee. So then we had to Google it and see what it looked like, and what it was, and neither one was really right. So, it's, again, where you're from. Certain people call things one thing, certain people call things another thing, and I have a lot more people from the north, and he has a lot more people from the south. And so, sometimes, we name things differently based on what they were called when we grew up. There's power in that. We can't possibly know everything. So when you admit that, because I know people who, have an answer for everything, even if it's a wrong answer, they just feel like they have to give you one. When you can admit you don't know everything, that is pretty freeing. Because let's face the facts, you don't. And when we think we do, we limit ourselves from growing and learning more than what we already do know. Because if you know everything, you can't learn anything new, right? I think I was told by family members that I said I knew everything when I was like 3 or 4, and they kind of took attitude about it. I'm like, okay, so a toddler told you they know everything and you took that seriously? Okay. Clearly you don't know everything about child rearing, because Some of my kids, they knew a lot about a lot, and it was funny what they thought they knew, because they say, well, explain that to me. And some of their toddler logic is just hilarious. You gotta love them. They're crazy. They don't know they're crazy. A person who can admit to not knowing tends to be more intellectually and emotionally confident than someone who pretends to know everything. Oh, yeah, let's read that again. A person who can admit to not knowing everything tends to be more intellectually and emotionally confident than someone who pretends to know everything. So, if you're mature, then you don't know everything, and you can say, yeah, I don't know that. I never learned about that. I never studied that, or I don't want to study that, They also tend to be more comfortable with who they are and don't feel the need to bluff or cover up any perceived ignorance. And some people are insecure in their intelligence. And if you didn't get a great education, that's not your fault. But now it is your fault if you feel like you want more of an education and you don't go get it. That is your fault. So, there's ways to do it. It might not be the traditional way. I couldn't do it the traditional way because for 8 years I was a single mom and I couldn't afford the payments. I could afford a $300 and some odd payment a month for a local college. That was not in the budget. So I'd pay for classes as I could afford them, through online distance schools. And yeah, you might not, if you go into a field where you need a license or whatever, you might not be able to get that in your state, but you can take that knowledge and use it in some kind of way. There's ways, educate yourself. Even if you don't want to go for any professional reason, you can just pick up a encyclopedia or dictionary and start reading. One of my grandmas was a big believer in that, and that's how I learned a lot of things. People can actually end up appearing more foolish when they act as if they know something that they don't. And I know people like that too. There's somebody, an in-law that supposedly knows everything. They have an answer for everything. And they were talking about something one time, and I knew they were wrong. And I'm just sitting here like, wait, you're telling these people this one thing when that's wrong. I already, have studied enough to know this is what's right. So, I call this person a pseudo-intellectual because they have an answer for everything, and sometimes their answers are not right. So, I would rather just say, I don't know, than, come up with some random answer that, you can poke holes in later. We would be wise to respect people who freely admit when they don't know something, because nobody knows everything. They are being honest with us and with themselves. And that's a big deal there is, being honest with other people and with yourself. If you feel like you have to know everything, you might want to examine why that is. And we, too, should feel no shame in saying, I don't know. In doing so, we open ourselves up to the unknown. Because, like I said, nobody knows everything. And if you want to know something, like I say, we got Google now. Google can just tell us anything. You might want to look at 2 or 3 entrances there to make sure that's correct, because sometimes there are people that are, playing games on different sites or whatever and giving people wrong answers about stuff. Excuse me, you run into that sometimes. If you're a gamer, there are people who say they did this, that, and the other, and then you try to do that and it doesn't work. And then you go through 2 or 3 more entries and find a couple that agree, and that does work. So, people just play games sometimes. We can then discover what lies beyond our current levels of understanding. It is the wise person in life that answers questions with a question and inspires the pursuit of internal answers with a funny face, a shrug, and a comical, I don't know. And, I've been known to do that. So, like I said, I'm smart enough to admit I know I don't know a lot. I might have a high IQ, but there's still a lot of things in the world I don't know anything about. Some things I don't want to know anything about. So, if you don't know something, admit that. And then you can learn. Think about it. That's all for now.